Again. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Plan a Successful IT Service Portal Project, 5 Steps to Get Your Team Ready. A few quick notes. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. You will receive an email from me no later than tomorrow with a link to both this recording and the slide deck. Secondly, Jeff will do a demo in a little bit, so you might want to find the full screen mode now. That will make it much easier for you to see the details of the demo. Lastly, we do have a Q&A session, so please enter your questions in the Q&A panel. Please send those to all participants or all speakers. And that way I'll field the questions and get them to either Don or Jeff. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen. Don?
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello all, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen, and with me today is my normal co-host, Jeff Benedict, who heads up our ITSM practice as well as leading our innovation efforts. Let me move the slide here. So if you're new to our webinar series, welcome. If you're a past attendee, thanks for coming back. Our goal, as always, is to share valuable information and insights you can use in your planning and activities right now. The topic we'll explore today is how to prepare your organization for a successful IT service portal project. It's a pretty timely topic, and we usually like to have a webinar around the start of the year on this since so many people are in the budget and planning cycle at this time. So here's our agenda. After very little about Evergreen, we'll dive into our topic. And beyond that, we will demonstrate some of the concepts discussed in our always evolving view of a very advanced self-service portal and catalog experience built on ServiceNow. And then, as Stephanie said, we'll answer questions if you have any. So Evergreen is a US-based consulting firm. We've worked with hundreds of mid-market, Fortune 1000, and public sector organizations to help them improve their IT service management execution. Over the past 20 years, we've delivered more than 4,000 IT service management projects. We are a full lifecycle firm, meaning we have both process and technology consulting in the same company. We are also one of a few top-tier or gold US ServiceNow partners that have experience and are qualified in services, application development, and training. And as a certified applications developer, we actually develop solutions on the platform which must be built and tested to the same standards as ServiceNow does themselves. We believe the benefit to you is higher quality. As we talk with our customers, they tell us that this is their biggest problem, meeting their ServiceNow demand. They say demand exceeds resources, but it can have peaks and valleys too. They say skilled resources are scarce. It takes 6 months for someone to become capable, then perhaps they get hired away. Also, one of the common things we hear is that we may not have a true solution architect to lead us. So when our people need help, where can they turn? And how do we even know if we're doing the right things? Last, even with expensive consultants like Evergreen, contracts, task orders, and invoicing are really a lot of work. And we educate them on our business, and then they're gone. So this is how most try to handle this challenge: a core internal ServiceNow team augmented by outside consultants on a project-by-project basis with possible offshore technical support. We're so used to doing it this way, we may not stop to think how hard and inefficient this can be. At Evergreen, we think that the traditional service approach is broken, and we created Evergreen Evolve to fix it. There's a huge amount of waste in the project-based kind of services that neither you or I benefit from. Due to scheduling issues on our side, it's hard for us to get resources billable more than 70 or 75% of the time, so 25% gets wasted. We also have a saying in consulting: the first project with the correct scope is the second one, and I know you all know what I mean by that. And so another 15 or 20% can get lost in risk allowance to account for those scope issues and the fact that we don't know each other. This is an astounding total of 40 to 45% that's wasted. This is why the going market rate for services is so high. Evolve is a different way of doing this. It's a part to full-time team of senior implementation certified ServiceNow experts specifically dedicated to you over a 6-month period, so our team and your team can become one team. You get dedicated U.S. thought leadership in our engagement managers and our senior solution architects who work closely with our offshore team of dedicated senior certified developers. Evergreen Evolve gives you one flexible contract to help you meet your tactical and strategic ServiceNow demand. Because it captures this huge amount of waste, we can pass the savings on to you in the form of very affordable costs. Best of all, there is no long-term lock-in. Our customers can cancel an Evolve contract anytime with only 30 days notice. So as we start this conversation today, a good place to start is with what are the best practices here. We first turn to IDLE, as many of the principles we need as service providers are there. But IDLE is not enough. It has no concept of designing and managing services from the customer's perspective, which is, after all, the whole point of doing this. Over 4 years ago, we began down this path looking customer in rather than IT out, and created customer-centric IT service management. Early on, we realized we would need to look beyond IDLE, so we turned to where there are powerful customer-centric principles in use every day. We find these in modern customer experience companies like Amazon, and Zappos, Airbnb, and many, many others. Not only that, but most of us are using them every day. So we have live fire demos we can use anytime to see these best practices in global production. That's pretty cool. But this kind of innovation isn't new. Over 100 years ago, cars, automobiles were individually hand-built and only affordable for the rich. There was no concept of a production line in the auto industry. But Henry Ford saw one at work in a beef butchering factory where the carcass came to the butchers on chains and hooks, and he directly adopted this idea to create the modern assembly line. So ask yourself this: how much of what we do in IT is like the custom car business a century ago? We have to go outside of IT. So what do customers want? It's actually very simple. They want a great customer experience and for us to meet our promises, like on-time delivery. These are hallmarks of the Amazon experience. What do executives want? They want the customers to have a better customer experience and to be able to self-service in a beautiful and powerful way. They want the efficiencies that come from self-service, which can free IT staff from the slow and repetitive one-to-one kind of interactions they're involved in today. And they want to deliver an enterprise-wide portfolio of consistent, high-quality services enabled by effective manageability and governance built right into the service. There's only one true measure of IT Service Portal success. Do the customers use it? Customer adoption. Adoption is a tipping point matter. If there's enough value there, and it is easy enough to use, and there are reasons to come back, and it is better than email or phone calls, then adoption can occur. There are some key factors we pay close attention to in planning for adoption. Excuse me. Most important, navigation must be intuitive, simple, and never abandon the user in the experience. Our solutions come with an easy button, so if the customer can't find what they want or gets frustrated, we give them a quick way to log an incident, make a request, or search for answers, with the key being that it's easier than email or the phone to keep them in the portal experience. Once they bail, they may not come back. There must be enough value in the services offered to make it worth using the portal. The overall experience must be easy to use and intuitive. It has to be sticky. That is, there has to be a reason for the customer to come back. A good example of something that's sticky is an easy, complete, self-service way to check the status of all of the open items. Let's say I'm the customer, all my open items for IT and beyond, like HR. This also benefits the provider, as status checks are 25 to 30% of most service desks' call volume. Last, it should allow some personalization, like configuring which notifications I want, so my experience of IT is improved. How do we build a service portal our customers will really like and use? A good goal is to build a customer service experience which reflects customer-centric design principles like the 5 above in a complete end-to-end solution. If you don't want to build it yourselves, you can use our self-service portal and catalog application built on ServiceNow. It's very inexpensive. It's been in continuous development for the past 4 years and has actually 15 distinct landing pages built to be a complete end-to-end experience. As we dig under the covers for project planning, a good place to begin is with the classic questions: who, what, when, where, how, and why, considered against the framework we use for key IT projects: people, process, technology, and culture. This will give you a way to build a working list of the key questions you need answers to, even beyond phase 1. So our goal today in this part is to make the high points really clear while also giving you some simple tools and guidance to help you get your organization ready. For most every point we cover today, there's a whole lot of additional supporting material you can easily access on our recorded webinar and PowerPoint slides library on the Evergreen website. It is organized by title, so it's easy to find what you're looking for. I have identified appropriate reference materials specifically with purple boxes at the bottom of some of the slides you're going to see, so this presentation can serve as a reference guide for you later on. We also have 3 other useful guides available, and if you want one, just request it: Services Definitions, Service Taxonomy Guide, and Service Governance, which you will see on slides when they might add value. Excuse me. Last of all, you know, in webinars, you get a lot of information about what you should do and how you should do things, but oftentimes, you know, the question is, how do we do it? How can we achieve this? Because we don't have this background. What we have done and what we're going to show today, we've already built and are using tools and processes to deliver everything we're going to talk about. So you don't need to create them, you'll need to apply them as they come with us as part of our IP if you were to choose to work on this. So all this has already been done, so you don't have to worry about that. There are some questions we might want to consider from the people perspective. Determining who should be involved is critical for success, as all service portals and catalogs involve all parts of IT. That's how IT delivers. In order to have consent and consensus, who needs to be part of this? Who are the early adopters in your organization, and who are the late adopters? And how can each one of those help you? What roles are needed, and who might best fit them? There is some useful roles information regarding service owners in our archive webinars: a day in the life of a service owner and 3 keys to delivering great IT services, as well as our services definition guide. A focus on delivering customer-centric IT services is very different from how IT has traditionally operated. What sorts of policies and processes might be useful to help us manage and deliver in this fashion? How can we agree on them and get broader adoption of them? What metrics are enough to get us started but still ensure we're successful in phase 1? Finally, how do we go about getting these deeply baked inside the technology so the work comes to us and all of our peers with the process and the policy already baked in? We may have a good technology platform, or we might need new enabling technology, or we might even have competing platform choices both inside and outside of IT in our organization. How do we ensure we have a good platform that we can easily incorporate or even bring some customer-centric best practices in policy and process? For ServiceNow, it's not uncommon for different groups inside an organization to own or be responsible for different functional areas of the platform. If so, having a consistent way to coordinate that interaction is certainly very important. So how would we define the impact of culture on our service portal and catalog project? What are the keys to successful customer adoption? What are the common objections customers raise and the common risks we will face? How do we set and manage customer expectations? So now we get to the first of our 5 After having asked all those questions, we get to the first of our 5 steps to helping you prepare your organization for a successful project. Let's get really strong clarity about why we are doing this. While we could define more or sort them differently, at the highest level, we can kind of group the reasons or benefits for doing this into 3 buckets. Customer self-service and strategic alignment is about changing the support paradigm, looking customer in rather than IT out, and also changing IT's view of what it does or focuses on in relation to what the business really needs. An Amazon-like experience is a good visual goal nearly everyone can readily understand. Key measures around customer satisfaction and better supporting key business initiatives. Economic and efficiency benefits are potentially very large through the elimination of work via self-service, simplifying the number of choices, and automation. A principle we call balanced design, that is, give the customer what they want to get what IT needs, means we can redesign the work so the customer enjoys the experience through self-service and we aren't even involved. When was the last time you spoke to someone at Amazon.com? Quality of service with agility, speed, and accuracy is really the overarching measure of success, as it combines all the activities of the customer, the business, and IT in one set of measures. A well-founded service portal and catalog project needs to have goals and measures in each of these areas. Last, we call out a few steps to take in the gray block. Discuss and document, define and weight your factors, and clearly define your customer. Step 2 slides are about governance and roles and responsibilities. There are a lot of words on this slide, sorry about that. You can see that as a service owner, your role will be different and larger than it was as a technical services manager. You have a much larger number of questions that you need answers to. And truthfully, we may not even be thinking about many of these questions today. They arise when we see the service from the customer's eyes. Pointing out this gap is a way to really underscore the importance of doing work in this area. Key steps to take are creating a service governance committee, which is 4 to 5 key folks, and then drafting a simple charter that defines your goals and how you will work and make decisions. And out of that should come a 1-page plan of action, which targets your initial operational service catalog as the goal. And we have examples, templates for all this stuff. It's not that complex, but it's a great place to start. It gets everyone aligned. As you dive deeper into roles and responsibilities, here are some key personas and what they care about to make sure you don't forget about them in your planning. What's interesting to note is that there are executive roles in both the customer and provider personas with different needs and wants than the individual customer or provider. The 3 constituents of a service, that is the customers, the providers, and the managers, all have needs that must be met to design and deliver durable IT services. Step 3 is getting a common language. Without a common language, you cannot communicate effectively with customers, providers, or managers. Unfortunately, ITIL definitionally runs out of gas a bit as we venture into customer-centric IT service. As an example, there is no ITIL concept or definition of a service taxonomy. Creating a definitions dictionary beyond what ITIL provides for your consistent use is a really nice foundational step. Evergreen can provide you our definitions dictionary as a good starting place, which you can use as a basis to run a 2 to 3 hour workshop with your key team members to refine, agree on, and document your key definitions. Really important to do this earlier rather than later. Step 4 is understanding the parts. There are more parts than these here, but these are essentials for getting a good service portal and catalog project done. I'll cover each one at a high level on the following slides, but for simplicity's sake, I am providing one purple reference block here for all the parts, which you see below. The service portal and catalog is where we offer services to customers. if a service isn't live, it isn't in the service catalog. Since this is also generally the portal for customer interaction with IT, it includes the other interactions customer commonly wants to have, like reporting a problem, asking questions, checking status of open requests, those sorts of things that are typically done via the service desk. There we show what we call a service home page. This is the place where a service is defined, described, and actionable. Every service should have one. The service is consumable and it's durable. It carries a commitment over time, such as hours of service, levels of service, and quality of service. A request, on the other hand, is a one-time action. It's not durable. Once it's completed, it's done, it's closed. A request is transactional. Requests are always attached to services. They don't carry SLAs. Instead, they have delivery time commitments for task completions. At a high level, they are mostly the add, change, or remove kind of service actions. Getting clarity around services and requests is key to building a true service portal and catalog rather than just a request catalog, which your clients won't easily understand, be able to navigate, or like very much. The service design process is a consistent method we use to build services. Here's a simplified view of the service design package for a service we're calling virtual meeting collaboration. We have a description that everyone can understand, who can access the service, who owns and manages it, and the more detailed functionality of the service. Then we also find the underlying elements we need to make it fly, like SLAs and OLAs, cost, and supporting teams. A consistent service design process creates consistent services, which your customers will love. The service taxonomy is a framework for logically organizing and managing our services across our different providers in IT. It's especially useful when we start to develop a lot of services, as it's very hard to understand them otherwise. It's also used to help customers find or search for services or see logical groupings of services based on terms they understand in the service portal and catalog experience. Here are two examples of the same taxonomy, one on the left hand in a graphical mind mapping tool that is easy for groups to use to build and understand the taxonomy, and then the same as you might see imported into and presented in the service portal and catalog in a technology like ServiceNow. Here's a quick look at service performance metrics alignment. These play a valuable intertwined role linking customers and providers. In a customer-centric service management kind of environment, KPIs cascade down in a pyramid, from the customer to the service owner to the service providers. The KPIs become SLAs, and SLAs become OLAs as we go down. And then all these OLAs roll up into the SLAs, which then deliver the KPIs. So we continually seek to improve our service delivery as well as the measures of our success, helped by visible alignment with the customer. Now we come to the part that we really do best in IT, which is where the rubber meets the road, defining the phase one project activities. This activity comes from and builds on the groundwork established in the first 4 steps. If we just go right to step 5, odds are we'll end up with a purely tactical request catalog outcome that our customers aren't happy with and won't want to use. The first 4 steps, done properly, give us the ability to draft a clear word picture of the phase 1 functionality we truly need for customers, providers, and managers. With that as a guide, it's much easier to review and score technology choices and potential service providers for our planned project. There are 2 ways that we typically see customers start, tactically and strategically. In IT, when we hear tactical, we automatically think that's bad, but that's not always true. Tactical start, unless it's not guided by experience, is a viable way to begin. Sometimes customers are looking for an upgrade on existing service catalog or portal, or perhaps want a small demo-like new portal and catalog to show what the future could look like and begin to handle customer interactions. While we don't have to do everything from the start, we do want to avoid a failure. A failure is the case where customers don't see enough value or have a good enough experience to warrant the use of the solution and they go around it. So we have to make it clean and simple, make sure the services are sticky, make it very easy to bail out and submit a general request or get help, make it a good place to quickly check the status of any open things. It has to be better than calling or emailing the service desk. Others start strategically, creating clear direction, consensus, business and economic underpinning, executive understanding and support, and most importantly, educating the whole team on new concepts, best practices, and definitions. We think this is a better way to start, and it can be done pretty quickly in a period of 2 to 3 weeks. Over 80% of our customers start with this as a direction, and this is an engagement that we've brought out and have delivered over 40 times now. So we get very terrific reuse from it, which allows us to bring more value for the price on an ongoing basis. And not only does it give you a detailed 3-phase strategy and roadmap, but we also work with your team to help you create your initial working service taxonomy using our mind map application, which you get to keep. We work through defining service ownership and governance with a perspective of roles and responsibilities, and we help you build an initial RACI mapping deliverable so you know how these things fit together. We guide you through our complete service design process, working together to build several sample services with your team. You keep the process to build more once we're gone. We deliver our findings in executive briefing along with a phase 1 statement of work for your use. Last but not least, we can also, in this engagement we do, create a working future state self-service portal and catalog demo with your look and feel in a sandbox environment, which you can use along with your roadmap to actually demonstrate what the future of customer-centric service might look like in your organization. And all that is done for $17,500. So let's recap. Get real clarity on why you're doing this. And that is really the most important step here. Governance, roles, and responsibilities are critical and different, perhaps, than what you're used to for end-to-end customer service delivery. A common language is the foundation of long-term success. Understanding the parts, the needed parts, ensures you create a complete, sustainable service portfolio, portal, and catalog for customers, providers, and managers, all 3 constituents. And knowing what you want and why is the only way to get exactly what you need. So that's it for our presentation today. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to demonstrate some of the concepts we've talked about here in action and in the solutions.
Thank you, Don. So I'm going to start kind of in the self-service portal and catalog experience. This is built on the service portal application of ServiceNow. And this is where our consumers can come to, get information about our services, submit service requests, obviously track the status of those requests. As you look at this experience here, you're kind of drawn as the consumer goes. It's a simple starting point. I can start with a search, right, as a way to kind of start my experience and look for either things to request or get answers to problems I'm having. Don mentioned kind of a bailout or kind of easy button, which I have that access kind of pinned here on the front, right, where I can start from a support perspective through engagement of chat or schedule appointments, where I can quickly jump to submit an issue report or an issue kind of request, or I can go and submit a general service request as an easy way to get the assistance and service I need. Further, in terms of my experience, some of the common activities I might be looking for are kind of pinned in the I want to mega menu up here, so I can quickly jump to that. And then lastly, you'll see I've got my pinned activities of most recently updated tickets, requests, and incidents commingled together in one place where I can track the status and submit updates to it. In the portal, I'm going to kind of focus in on the services area. This is also an area where we can kind of share and show what are the services that we provide and offer to our consumers. And part of the purpose for displaying these is, one, to provide transparency as what can you actually expect from these services, but also to, as Don kind of articulated, putting them in labels that kind of bridge the gap in our languages between us as the providers and the consumers as they see them, so putting them in the same kind of language that we all see. As I come to this page, one of the first things that's kind of happening is bubbling up through some of my activities, some of my association, my departments and locations and my role within the organization, kind of bubbling up some of the services that are suggested for me, kind of based off of the combination of those various factors. I can kind of hide and push those to the side if I don't want to be bothered there. I can then kind of drill through our kind of taxonomy to find, the services I might be looking for. And as I ultimately get to a service area, in this case, maybe my use case here is I'm looking for some support related to my laptop. Maybe it's running a little sluggish and I need some assistance. So I can come to a page related to laptop support, see information about what this service is, kind of some of the things that are provided as part of this service, some of my common actions that I can provide so I can get help, right? But also some pinned activities here of some frequently asked questions that maybe help self-solve my own issues. I can kind of peruse and browse these and kind of figure out how best to use this particular service to my benefit. I can also see some further details in terms of this is broken out by multiple offerings, to which I'm subscribed to the standard offering versus the executive offering. And then there are also some other activities or actions that are kind of pinned here on this Forms tab. Now in my case, I'd kind of like to look at maybe I can just get a new computer rather than try to fix my current one. So I can look at this option for refresh my computer, which then takes me to kind of a customer experience form to first of all check to see if I'm eligible to get a new replacement or refresh on my computer. Which in my case, I've been alerted that I am eligible, so I can start this process. And then what we're doing in these particular forms is rather than showing the full list of available models and options and a very long laundry list of forms for me to go through, there's some suggestions being made to me based off of my likely use of this particular equipment. Am I using it for business purposes or for more technical development purposes? And if so, here's some of the types of standards that we provide to those different use cases. All right, so I'm going to gravitate to, say, the MacBook. And then the other thing we're doing is kind of, as part of this, kind of walking me through this order process of confirming that I've agreed to various rights and roles. I've read some of the policies. I understand there's going to be some chargeback to my cost center as part of this device. So I'm going to acknowledge that I'm good with all of those and want to proceed with this order. And then as I kind of go through this now, we're at the point of I've submitted an order. I've got a tracking number that I can keep track of. Right. I've also communicating some information to me as a consumer as to when can I expect to get this particular replacement. Also, how can I handle my existing applications? How can I handle my existing files that are on my machine? How should I handle that kind of transition from old to new? All right, further, if I want to see more details, I can jump to the tracking page specific to this item to kind of keep an eye on how it's progressing through its activities, which I can see it's got a number of different steps or phases as part of this, and I can see it's currently awaiting Don's approval to make this thing progress further. So just to kind of quickly, I'll just transition to the back end of this just to show you. So if I were to go and show you this request, and I won't go through the full workflow of this, but just to highlight some of the things that are happening kind of behind the customer, right? So to fulfill or support the fulfillment activities. So some of the information that came through on this, setting the appropriate due dates on these activities, passing in what computer am I actually going to be getting rid of as a replacement for this particular new refresh activity. And then as noted, here's the activity to approve this, which I'm just going to go ahead and approve on Don's behalf. And then what happens as this thing progresses, I'll just go through the first step of this process, is really determining and driving how are we going to fulfill this particular equipment order, which starts off kind of through a procurement kind of process where our sourcing group would evaluate kind of how best to source this particular equipment. Either do we have available stock that services my location? If so, let's use what we have in our stockroom. Otherwise, going through more of a purchasing kind of process and through our selected vendors, and ultimately kind of where we're going to deliver this equipment is going to kind of drive kind of how it goes and how it gets fulfilled. So that's as far as I want to go with that workflow, but just to kind of highlight that obviously there's orchestration, there's coordination of activities to ultimately take my request that was communicated to me to be done in 10 days to actually be able to deliver it in 10 days, take some orchestration and consistent processes around there. So I showed the laptop service page or service homepage. I do want to show, just kind of go quickly here, kind of how we get to that or how we manage that data that shows up on those service pages. So to best articulate this, I thought I would kind of show creating a new service and kind of showing how that then shows up. Some of those data elements that we would define over here would show up on the portal for the consumers. So I'm going to create a new service. I'm going to call this meeting collaboration. And kind of behind this service, it's backed by a couple technologies that are kind of commonly known in our organization. We use Skype for a lot of our meetings. We use Zoom for some special meeting requirements. So I'm going to put these as aliases. So if we search for Skype or we search for Zoom, the meeting collaboration service will show up as well through kind of those meta tags. I'm going to say it's owned by Alice Smith, also managed by a different Dawn. I'll say it's managed by our IT department. And the way we're going to kind of charge this back is on a monthly allocation. And then I'm going to choose from our taxonomy of services, and ultimately I'm going to just put this in our collaboration service area. Say we're on version 1.0 of this service, a support group here. And then some of the other details I'll just copy and paste here so you don't have to type it all out. And I'll just keep formatting. And then also highlight here, you notice there's some HTML code I'm sticking in here. So some benefits there in that if there's some links to other systems we want to include as part of this description information, or we want to bold out or organize things in headings and sections, we can do that as part of these descriptors. I'm also going to outline that this is available to a couple departments, and we'll say our finance group as well. All right, so maybe the last thing we're doing here, I'll just give it a picture. And I've already got my picture outlined over here. All right, so that's kind of the starting point of our service. Now the other thing I wanted to kind of add to this is you'll see some sections down below for like I can have multiple different offerings. Now I've already created these offerings, so I'm just going to kind of link these to my parent, and I'll kind of show you what's in each of these areas here. I'm going to link these to meeting collaboration. And so as kind of highlighted before, we've got our kind of standard Skype service that we provide, very inexpensive, a couple of dollars a month. They're allocated to every department as part of this on a regular basis. We've got some outline commitments around availability, resolution, response time. And there's various features and functionality that we provide as part of this service. And there are some things that are really not part of this in terms of premium audio or cloud and local recording, integrated scheduling. Those kind of features aren't part of that. So we also have an alternative offering or optional offering for this Zoom service, which costs a little bit more and has some similar commitments around availability and resolution, but might have some added features or functionality that may be needed for select users to maximize the use of this collaboration kind of service. So let's go back to the service page. One other tab I want to hit on here as well. So there's there's two tabs I'll hit on. One, if I want to define dependencies between this service and other related components, I can do that as part of the CI relationships, which really can be used for service health and impact analysis. But for now, I'm just going to kind of keep that blank. But I do want to hit on the request form. So this is kind of on my laptop service. I had some actions I can perform in context of that service page. So some of the things I can do on this tab is I can define if someone's not a subscriber to this service or not a subscriber to an offering, I can kind of define what is the catalog item or the form for requesting access to this service. We have kind of a standard one that we've already got kind of packaged. I can use that. I can also supplement its workflow with our own kind of fulfillment workflow. But I'm just going to use our standard for it now. I'm going to change the button label, just say request access to meeting collaboration. And the other thing I can do is I can define specific items that I want to make available to request whenever users are looking at this particular service. So some of these might be the things like maybe I want to allow them to say request our schedule webinar event item. Maybe I want to give them an option to ask a question, and maybe also a request kind of a Skype for business number kind of request. So I can kind of go out and define these specific catalog items that I want to kind of pin as part of my service page or service homepage for people to be able to request these and act on them. The other way I can do this is I can also define what's more of a dynamic query, which you'll notice when I fill this in, it kind of hides the other field. And really what this is a predefined filter that would in essence go out and look in our active catalog to say what are the things that kind of meet this filter criteria and then show those items as request or actionable. In this case I'm not going to use that, but I just wanted to show that that's an option or capability. Alright, so I think I've got that set up. So now let me go and show you this item. So we're just going to go start at the beginning here, go back to the portal homepage. And I'll just search for meeting collaboration. And at the top of my list is my new service we just created. I can click on this and take me to my kind of home page for this particular service. And so now here's where we see some of that information that I put in here before about some of the descriptive information. Our different offerings are kind of broken out in here in terms of our Skype versus Zoom. Notice I'm already subscribed to the Skype service, and this was done because as part of that service offering, I kind of didn't hit on the tab, but you can define kind of the linkages between subscribers and an offering. And one of the subscribers for this offering was the IT department, and I happen to be in the IT department, so by my affiliation with the organization, I'm already inherently subscribed to this particular service. I actually actively use this as a consumer. Right, I can also see some status and health information. If I want to subscribe to alerts, so if there's issues or degradations or other kind of critical events that go on with this service, I can be notified of that. And then here's where we see some of those forms that we pinned, right? So the ask a question, schedule webinar event, the business number. And also I can see some options here for some of the metrics of how well it's actually delivered to some of those commitments to date in terms of response, resolution, and availability targets as we kind of see outlined and described on the offerings tab. So I'll go ahead and request access to meeting collaboration. And one of the things you'll see here is that since I've already subscribed to Skype, I really can't resubscribe to this as an offering. But this, in essence, form gives me an option to subscribe to some other offerings that I maybe are already included in. Right, so if I try to choose Skype, it's basically going to say you're already subscribed, so you can't go there. So I can choose Zoom as an alternative optional offering, put in my additional details as to why I should get this particular service offering added to my list, submit my request, and then much like my other purchasing requests that I did, I can track the progress of this, kind of see how it's progressing, which in this case kind of has a process to get approval from the service owner and then fulfilled and then complete. All right, so then on the other end of this process, our approver, Alice Smith, right, she can come out and find various items that need approval, right, and let me go refresh this page real quick. And basically approve or deny these particular items to move this kind of process forward. Right, so she sees her item out here awaiting approval for me. She could reject it, or in this case, just approve it, mark it as approved, and then this request is going to move forward. Right, and so just to kind of, much like I did the last time, I'll just show quickly the workflow behind this. Kind of takes in what's my service, what's my offering, the additional details that I was asking for, and then kind of goes through a process where if we had to put in a specific kind of workflow activity specific to fulfilling service requests or service access requests related to this meeting collaboration service, it would have gone this path up here for that unique service. Otherwise, it kind of routed as a task for the assigned group to kind of set up this additional access for me, and then ultimately, they would mark this as complete. My whole request is now complete, so that when I go back to, if I go back to my meeting collaboration service, let's go research this for a second here. So if I go back to my service, I should now see my new offering as part of my subscribed list. So just to confirm, pull up this page here. All right, so now I'm seeing both Zoom and Skype as part of my registered list, so that if there's any issues related to either of these services, I can be notified of that. Also, there's some, if there were some material changes to these services, I can be kind of brought into the loop about those as well. The other thing just to highlight here on the back end of this is we also, as part of becoming various transactions, like becoming a new subscriber to a service, you might send the user kind of questionnaires or surveys to provide feedback as to how well they're using this survey or how well they're using this service. Right, so in this particular case, gaining access to this new service offering kind of triggered a survey to be sent to me to provide feedback. Very simple survey to just say I'm happy. Here is some feedback, right, that I can then submit and provide back to our service group that's providing the service to make sure they're happy or make sure we're delivering the best service we can. And then conversely, the service owner can get notices about new subscribers. She can kind of manage her service commitments kind of through more of a dashboard page where she can see the active incidents, active requests, and active subscribers, kind of the same kind of health and target information with some options to kind of slice and dice and evaluate those trends. Right, and then also see some of the recent feedback that's been submitted, and it'll highlight any kind of negative feedback as well that you might want to address or respond to. So I think that covers what I hope to kind of show in kind of response to what Don had in his slides. Hopefully this was helpful in seeing kind of how the service portal and some of the service components can kind of drive kind of a good end state for our consumers.
All right, thank you, Jeff. So if you found any of this interesting, here are some possible next steps. If you're interested in our advanced self-service portal and catalog that Jeff demonstrated, as I mentioned, it's very inexpensive. It's also the most viewed and purchased application on the ServiceNow store. It is available as a fully functioning self-service demo. Yeah, it's fun, it's easy to use, you can play around with it, and I think 1,400 people have signed up for it to date at this point. You can get your own login from our website and be using it in 5 minutes so you can see what Jeff was doing, or you can actually download a demo version from the ServiceNow store, whichever is easier for you. Or perhaps you're interested in establishing a better service catalog direction and roadmap. Maybe take a deeper look at our service catalog strategy and roadmap offering. As I said, it delivers in a few weeks, and it gives you a complete, good strategic start for this initiative. Last but not least, maybe you're interested in a better way to meet your ServiceNow demand ongoing for both strategic and tactical kind of activities. Check it out. Please come to our website and take a look at an entirely new way of delivering services with Evergreen involved. So that's all we have today for our presentation, and we're going to open it up for questions here, and I think we have a couple.
We do, and first, real quickly, the items that Don mentioned earlier, I believe it was the taxonomy and the governments, the dictionary, any of those items that you're interested in requesting, if you send me an email, and that's marketing@evergreensys.com, I'll get you in touch with Kent Gaskill. He'll get that document over to you and then set up a quick minute or two just to walk you through the use of whatever particular document you request. So again, it's marketing@evergreensys.com. As far as questions, we have one that came in, and Jeff, this is probably for you. When first implementing a self-service portal, how do you get people to come and visit for the first time? Some people might say it's just easier to call or email the help desk.
Yeah, it's certainly, I would take Don's input on this as well. I mean, certainly any of these self-service portal and catalog projects, there usually is an element of marketing and kind of promoting really the benefits of the portal and why it's easier to use than to make a phone call or email the service desk, and some of the benefits for both the organization as a whole, but also for the consumer. Obviously more and more from the consumer world, as Don highlighted, we are using technology rather than picking up the phone or sending emails, and we're finding that the experience we get through those tools, the Uber apps, right, the Amazon websites, where you don't pick up the phone to order something from Amazon, right? We're finding that those tools are easy to use and are convenient and provide us the outcomes that we're looking for with low burden on us. And so those are some of the things that we want to articulate to our consumer, or to to the customers of the new portals as well, so they realize that their experience can be better served through the technology.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because it is the fear, right? That it's not gonna get adopted, and then what's the point of it all? The one data point, most people, a large majority prefer self-service if it's good. There've been a number of studies done about this, but somewhere in the 85 to 95% of people prefer it if it is good. So it is that. And in the phase 1 project, you should have a marketing communication stripe. I think as Jeff has mentioned a little bit there too, to make sure people are aware of it, to promote it, to explain what's going to happen, so it builds some interest around it. And the other key thing is you've got to have enough content to make it a viable destination. And then you need things that are better than email or phone, interactions and sticky things like the status check. If I can come and check the status of all my requests without having to call someone in IT and wait on the phone, then I'm going to be happy to do that, because that's going to be a much faster thing. And if you have great knowledge content and I can search it, right, or I can search for things I want to request more easily than picking up the phone or email, then I'm going to want to do that too. So these are all great benefits. Another example would be automating software distribution and hooking it to a catalog. And we've done that for a number of clients, where an individual can self-serve to adding software and actually basically push a button and have it pushed to them through SCCM or what have you. So it's completely unattended, and it's very, very fast. So, those are just examples, but the question is a good one, because you've got to have enough so that it sticks, right, so that people do adopt it.
Jeff, a few more questions. First of all, which ServiceNow platform did you use to create the dashboard page?
So that was created, that's on the Service Portal technology, and the version I was showing is a Jakarta environment, though it would work on a previous environment as well as Kingston. Some of the things that we have built into that page to provide some of the reports, we're using things like Chart.js as a library. And a lot of the data is coming from the service portfolio application in terms of achievement on availability targets and achievement on SLA targets, those sorts of things.
Okay, great, thanks. Another one, Jeff. My company has a pre-existing service architecture, but it's not clearly defined or organized. What is your advice for redesigning a service architecture to simplify and effectively meet our customers' needs?
So I don't know if you want to take that one down. That's it might be more in your strike zone as far as the taxonomy and kind of looking at re-architecting taxonomy.
Yeah, the guy that asked this, it's actually a very common question, and most of the times when we start to work with someone, they may have a very large request catalog, which is all these kinds of request types. We're thinking people will request this, request that. The problem with the request catalog is if you know what you want, it might work. But if you don't know exactly what you want, or you want to see a range of options, it's not a very effective way to do things, right? And so what happens is that the first thing we do with a client very early on is we will go through a taxonomy exercise and create, and really what a taxonomy is, the framework for organizing content that goes into the service portal and catalog. And that framework creates this clearly defined, well-organized structure that works for both the provider and the customer. And one of the principles we have is that the labels are for the customers, because they're going to see it in the experience, so they have to make sense to them. But the framework is for the providers as a way to organize those services rationally, so it works for both parties. And a good example kind of in our lives would be the Dewey Decimal System, which actually works for the customers of the library, as well as the providers if you use the system, right? But it's hard to imagine managing a library without something like the Dewey Decimal System. So that's a great question, and it really starts with that organization taxonomy kind of exercise.
Great, thanks, Don and Jeff. A couple more, Jeff, for you. Is it recommended for consumers to start at the service page to make all requests?
We're seeing more and more, I guess, in a trend in that direction where our customers are looking to kind of start as a service, kind of having the service kind of at the center of the experience. And I think this, parallels well with some of the other sites that we were talking about earlier. Like if you look at an Amazon or other, kind of customer support sites, you oftentimes start at a product. What's the product you're interested in, and then from there, either learning more, getting help, seeing reviews, feedback, and then ultimately performing actions like making orders or requesting enhancements. So I think that paradigm, matches what we're seeing a lot of customers kind of moving from an IT support perspective to a kind of a service support-centric kind of model. There's always options, and we've kind of built this into our portal application where, as Don mentioned, you can have a request catalog where you start at the request and the actions, then see service information from there. But we're seeing more and more people kind of, realign to where you'll start at kind of a service homepage and then get information, perform actions, kind of in context to that.
Okay, great. We are at the end of the hour. I have a couple more questions, so those of you who can hang out, please do. Jeff, in the computer refresh demo example, would the choices differ for one user versus another?
So more than likely, yes. I guess it would kind of depend on organization size. My demo, in total, I had kind of 5 different choices of laptops I could choose from for my kind of needs. But I think chances are you'll have different people in different departments, different functions, and so that the choices the actual individual laptop choices might differ from one user to the next. So I do think the goal in that example is to provide what we kind of consider choice simplification within that experience. So I'm not overwhelmed with the number of choices I have to sift through. It's an easy experience for me to be able to make a kind of happy meal kind of choice, right, and get what I want.
Okay, and I think this is our last question. In the demo, were the items created in the item designer created by business users, or would these be created by ServiceNow administrators?
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned that briefly, but yes, the items that I chose on the business service, those can be created kind of individually as service catalog items or kind of through item designer. And I think for those who are not familiar with the item designer kind of application, that's ServiceNow's kind of attempt at creating a citizen developer kind of model where non-administrators can create those kind of workflows and catalog items. And it's a good tool and a good toolkit for doing so. Though I will say what we tend to kind of advise our customers on is you do want to have some governance around that process. You do want to have some uniformity in the experience your customers have. So having, say, a business user draft the items is certainly one aspect that you want some level of governance and review kind of before it gets published to a consumer.
Okay, great, thanks. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. A couple quick notes. We do have some workshops coming up, our complimentary service catalog half-day workshops. So if you are in Houston or Phoenix, those are our next 2 stops, February 20th and 22nd, respectively. You can find information about the workshops as well as links to all our upcoming and the recordings of past webinars on the evergreensys.com website. Go to the resources page, and again, you'll find the workshop listings, all our webinars, and past recordings. So thank you again for attending. We will get this recording out to you and the slides, and we look forward to you joining us again soon. Thank you.